Live any second now, boys.
Excellent. Wait, does my mic sound good?
Yeah,
You
your
do
mic
sound
sounds
good.
fine.
I'm just going to preemptively lower you by 2 clicks just because for some reason OBS loves to boost you.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I'm already loud, so I'm sure I shatter eardrums.
It's okay.
That's
All right.
awesome.
So I believe we are officially live. So welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm thinking we should come up with a name for this thing. I'm thinking the Council of Candor. But that's just because I kind of think it's funny if people say, "Oh, did you see the newest cock today?" But we can
I
workshop.
do like that, yeah.
That is
you'll
pretty
see
good.
us.
Yeah, we can
Very
workshop it
solid.
otherwise. So yes, hello, lords and ladies of the internet. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, the King of Candor, and today is a continuation of last week, where we're going to go into more detail about the World of Darkness. I have some familiar faces as co-hosts with me today. Starting alphabetically, we're going to go Mr. Astronaut. How are you doing today, sir?
Hello, amazing astronaut reporting in. I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent. Good to hear. His channel is linked below, by the way, if you want to go check it out. Next up is my friend Shadow, or Magic Goat, as he's known as. How are you doing today, Goat?
I'm doing pretty great, ready to tell some very normal and very safe for work stories.
Are there any in the system? But I'm looking forward to it. And then next up is Nebula. He
Hello.
and me Twitch streamed last night. If you did not see it, it was on his channel,
He and I.
which is linked below. It was a lot of fun. We're doing a Baldur's Gate 3 stream where I am playing a Dwergar Paladin and he is playing a Tiefling Paladin. So come check out and watch the shenanigans.
Yep.
Any
There
else you
are
wanna shout out,
sure to be
Nebula?
many.
Hijinks will ensue.
Yes.
Yes, very much. What did you say, King?
Any more things you want to shout out about your channel? Any other cool streams you got coming up soon?
None planned. I've been playing through Persona 3 Reloaded, though, so that's the thing.
There you go.
On and off here and there.
I have many friends who love that.
Oh, there is one other thing to shout out, but I can't continue it right now because mods aren't updated for it. Being fucking Stellaris with waifus.
There you go.
It's horrible and degenerate. You shouldn't watch it. It's great. 10 out of 10.
You definitely should watch it.
Look,
And
all
that
I'm
is-
trying to do.
All that is linked below to go check out, my friends. Next up, Mr.
Yeah.
Pops, our animal experto. How are you today, sir?
Pretty great. If it is alphabetical order, I should be last. But
Yeah,
it's all good.
What about Pag? What about
You see, here's the thing. Discord sorts you guys like true alphabetically, so you're the Great Pagliacci, so you're unfortunate
Okay.
there.
That's fair, yeah.
So,
rip
yeah.
in peace.
You know what?
Anyway,
let's,
yeah,
let's
I'm
bring the
doing-
loudmouth in. Mr. Peg, since you want to interrupt everybody, go now, and then we'll end up with Pops, our favorite host.
Hi. Yeah, I'm an author. I keep saying that I'm going to be releasing this book this week or like Monday or whatnot, but for real, Monday this time. For real. Sign of the Void. Check it out. Also, I love World of Darkness. I'm a big fan of the game, huge fan. So 2 thumbs up, 3 thumbs up even.
5 thumbs up even.
Yeah, as many as I have. Anyway, yeah, on to Pops. What's up, Pops?
What's going on, baby?
Hey.
So, like I was saying, I'm excited to do this whole stream and actually get into some of the things I was actually researching when the topic was first introduced, rather than just the history of the company, which was fun and mind-blowing, but I was not prepared for it. So hopefully we can get in a little bit more into some of the in-depth stuff about the games, the lore, the history, the characters, and all that, because I did find it super fascinating, and I also appreciate, the fact that it's still ongoing. What was it? They had like 12 or 13 different types of games for it at this point,
So many.
Yep.
right? Yeah, so I'm excited to get into
Well,
all that,
wait,
because I feel like pretty much everything I said last week would apply to the same sentiments I have now. I'm just happy to get into it and kind of, dive in and actually learn about it. Because it's, interesting. Try not to be a loudmouth.
You can use your mouth for whatever you want, Pops.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
You know what you can even use it for? You can use it to badmouth a good YouTuber who talked about your book and made it a bit too mainstream for your liking.
My book. I don't have a book. I don't know what you're talking about, brother.
Oh,
It's your special interest, Pops.
Especially it's only my most recent autistic fixation. That's all it is.
No, you love the thing.
Nah,
If you could marry the concept of the book, you would. It'd be kind of weird considering what the judge does, but I guess except the flaws.
Wow, really? Yeah, just let everyone know what book it is. There you go.
They ain't gonna be smart enough to figure that out. There's lots of books. There's a whole book of judges in the Bible. So, we are going to get into it, but first, I want to talk about something quite interesting that's happened.
Sup, Artemis?
I do like interesting things. They're better than uninteresting things. Believe it or not.
So true.
So, and great timing, Artemis. D&D Beyond had a major leak happen with a bunch of their new terms of service stuff. So, I don't think anybody in this call uses D&D Beyond. I know.
Hell no.
I'm sorry. But I think it's a fantastic concept. It's something I didn't know you could do in D&D Beyond is you could buy parts of a book instead of the whole book. For example, let's say that they release a book that's, I don't know, absolutely garbage, like Sword Coast Adventures, that has no redeeming qualities. But there's one fighter subclass that you really like. Instead of paying $40 for the whole book, you could pay like $2, and they give you access to using the fighter thing. So when you're making your character, it automatically fills in all the subclass for the fighter. It's really cool, and it's a really neat way for somebody to get parts of a book that you want to use, but you don't have to waste your time doing the whole thing. And then later on, if you have parts of the book bought, it's cheaper to buy the full book. Very pro-consumer, very cool way to do stuff. They, in their never-ending quest to destroy their company, Wizards of the Coast bought D&D Beyond years ago, and now they've started doing the evil plan. They removed that option of buying things a la carte. You have to buy the full book.
Of course. It just makes more sense that way. Good job, Wizards.
I'm not just going to Google the new book PDF online anytime I want to get one of these books.
Well, here's the thing, though. The fact that they're looking out for the customers' like specific interest shows that they're actually invested in making everyone kind of like them even more by providing something like that. I think it makes sense.
Exactly. Keep removing more content and stuff, but it gets better. So the reason it's such a big deal is D&D Beyond is a really neat closed ecosystem. If you have as a creator of content, it's a bit of a pain in the butt to actually create stuff for them. Because instead of just being like a list that you can put stuff on, which is what DM's Guild is, D&D Beyond requires you to format it in a way that automatically fills in your character sheet. There's a reason that it's so popular among so many brain-dead people. It'll just fill in your character sheet for you. You never have to roll or figure anything out again. Artemis used D&D Beyond years ago. Yeah, it's kind of neat because it just fills it out for you, which is really cool because an auto-filling character sheet is something basically everybody wants. Because I know it's fun to fill in a character sheet, but sometimes you just want to click a few options. You know what you need to, you just don't want to write them out. So because they remove the ability to get individual pieces, you now have to buy a whole book to fill in any sections of it. What has happened, of course, is people have started downloading all of the files for how you used to format it and re-uploading it under a different name. Instead of the Alchemist, they'd re-upload the exact same mechanics as Potion Pony. So now here you go, it's everything. It's just they change one line of text instead of saying you're an alchemist, you're a magical pony who makes potions. All the mechanics are the exact same because their homebrew section is still there and it's free. But there's a 5D chess thing that I've heard some people thinking. D&D Beyond is allowing that to happen. So then they can say, look, these guys are breaking our copyright, so we have to remove homebrew content from D&D Beyond. Ergo, we have to remove all the people who made third-party content because they're under the same section as the homebrew. Because they tried to do that with the OGL months ago. So, this is the part 2 of the OGL scandal. This is them coming back like everybody predicted with a vengeance.
Wow.
It's kind of wild how Wizards of the Coast seems to be just like a never-ending downhill avalanche of fuck. Like it just never stops. They just don't ever cease releasing shit that gets them in trouble. I don't know any other company that manages to do this.
Didn't they recently try to update their terms of service to fuck over creators, and that was specifically illegal?
Yeah, That was the OGL thing.
Yeah, they literally were not allowed to do that by like
King of Candor
judge order.
has a video on.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do
you
have
should-
several
you should-
videos on this if you want to learn about the OGL scandal. They're some of my most favorite videos because I got really upset when making them. I got pissed because
Oh, yeah,
this
makes
is
sense.
something that just they had no reason to screw with. And now here you're looking at it, and you might guys, you bring up a good point. Why would you do this? This is because D&D right now is doing something what is called 80-20 in business. It is incredibly moronic, but the idea is if you can cut out 20% of your business and still sell to the 80%, then you're doing pretty good. But if you can still stay profitable by cutting 80% of your business down to 20%, you're doing even better. Because if you can keep that core 20% of people and still keep the same profitability, you will have a hyper-focused niche audience that you can fully exploit. This is ironically what Warhammer did on accident because nobody else was even being slightly competitive in the wargame market. So by sheer accident, they cut themselves down to only doing Warhammer stuff and making profits on just the Warhammer stuff. Because the Warhammer stuff took them so much more time, they stopped making D&D minis. They stopped doing D&D books and industry-wide stuff. They stopped the White Dwarf magazine. So now D&D sees that and is trying to replicate their success here with Wizards. And that's what Wizards have been doing, is trying to cut them down. They're trying to get rid of the fluff of the hobby. They forecast that the people who are the most upset by this are people they can afford to get rid of. Why hunt dolphins and fish when you can hunt a whale? That's their philosophy. That's why they keep hiring people who make mobile games. That's why they hired Cynthia, I forget her last name, the chick who just stepped down as CEO of Hasbro, who used to be a Microsoft executive. That's why they have the guy who's in charge of running D&D's digital storefront was caught in a leaked thing saying, I hate D&D Beyond, we need to kill it as quick as possible. Because it's cutting into their profitability in their business sets. It is incredibly wicked, incredibly evil what they're doing, but it makes business sense, apparently.
Yeah, it's kind of just an unfortunate truth of a lot of big corporations and businesses like that they can afford to lose you, especially nowadays with D&D. They can afford to lose a lot of people because it's ballooned and grown so much.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that, there are way more idiots who have no taste who are going to spend into it. I don't want to rag on anybody for having a favorite topic, but Avatar, the whole Blue People movies, should not make as much money as they do. You have horrible taste if you like those movies. I'm sorry. You can like them subjectively, but you can't tell me these are revolutionary pieces of art. They're going to make you feel something for decades. They look real pretty.
Flaming hot take. I agree.
I'm
sure.
It irritates me because I'm one of the 20% who they're like, yeah, we can afford to lose yous.
With the cigar.
But at the same time, I'm exactly the same way with how I'm designing my game. So can I really be that upset? Like my game is designed at a specific audience. I'm specifically aiming for the turbo nerds. And I don't care if I don't get the regular.
There is a difference.
I think that comes from a different place, because you're making the game targeted toward a specific audience because it's something that you like. So it's more so out of your own love for it rather than these guys who became kind of soulless. It sounds like from looking for a profit.
Yeah, I guess they're moving their audience from what it originally was rather than starting with
that's
or they're letting it happen. Yeah.
And they're trying to chase out because if you remember, all of us here who've played D&D throughout the years, there's nobody here who's just started a week ago. Either they haven't played or they've been playing for a while. D&D has always had this homebrew edge to it. And this goes back to, ironically, nerd culture used to be entirely DIY, do it yourself. This is why you build your own computers. This is why you write fan fiction. The idea of nerd culture's always been, screw it, I'll fix it myself. Because these guys did it wrong. These people don't know how to do these things. That's the whole culture's always been that. You know what? I absolutely fucking hate your roll to a hit mechanic. Rolling down doesn't make sense on defense matrices. I'll just roll up for positive AC. That all these designs come about because that's the type of culture that's encouraged. Unfortunately, with nerd culture going mainstream, a lot of people have sort of given up and have gone back to just the laissez-faire consuming of a product instead of fully working through a product. which has led to the things that we have today. That's why people just passively watch as things go terribly wrong with their products. And this is what's going on here. Wizards knows that they can make more money off these passive consumers who just buy everything than they would if they actually went and fought for their consumers like what we have now. That's why if you look at the market share, D&D's total share of the market has gone down a lot, but they don't care because the part that they've captured will never leave the D&D ecosystem. It's fascinating to look at, which is ironic because
I mean,
it's
man.
I feel like they could leave one day. All you have to do is make one massive mistake.
But you see, here's the thing. They are going to do what World of Warcraft did. Do you ever wonder why World of Warcraft doesn't die? It's not because World of Warcraft's a good game. It stopped being a good game probably 10 years ago. It's because World of Warcraft is where your fucking memories are. Your friends are here. You've got a decade in here. You're really not going to pay that $15 this month to lose a decade of experience here? Well, shit, I better pay.
I know exactly how that goes.
That's the thing.
I didn't have fun with World of Warcraft for months before I canceled my sub.
I have a friend.
It was months that I was like, I fucking hate this game.
I have a friend, God rest his soul. He's still alive, but he doesn't want to be because he plays World of Warcraft all fucking day. He hates it. He runs a guild, and anytime I talk to him, he tells me, he's like, King, I just hate this guild. I hate this game. Every time they update, it's something stupid. There's a stupid Battle Royale now. There's a Mr. Pandaria update out today. I hate everything. I'm like, why are you still playing? He's like, because what else would I do? Because they captured him. He got the game back when we were in high school, like in Burning Crusade Lich King level territory. This is ancient history. This is like he got it with the first expansion pack when he was a kid. There's no way he's given that up. He's been playing World of Warcraft more than he's lived in any city of his life. That level of dedication, how could I honestly tell him stop paying the $15 a month for it? That's his home. He wants it to be good.
It's a nostalgic thing, and also I don't want to say sunk cost, like in
it is sunk cost.
That's exactly what it is.
When you're invested in something for however long it is, like you said, it can take you months to quit, even after you're already like, I'm already losing interest. But you feel this like it's a necessary part of your routine or something in your life, or you've got a community, It goes kind of.
If I give up on it now, it can never get better. If I abandon it, it can't get me better. It's going to always suck and it's gone. It's real difficult to learn to let stuff go. That's why Star Wars is in such a terrible state, because it is currently bad. I don't care what anybody says. Star Wars is currently in a horrible position from where it was even after the prequels came out. A decade ago, Star Wars was the strongest it's ever been. It's basically a TV show brand now. It's dead. Regardless of how you feel about the current media quality. It's a streaming thing.
When people talk about Andor, they talk about how it's not like Star Wars and it's better than anything Star Wars has done.
Yeah. Andor's the type of show that would have done gangbusters because it's not Star Wars enough back then. Whereas now we are lacking so much Star Wars content that a show like Andor is going to be poo-pooed because it doesn't feel like Star Wars. I understand completely why people didn't like Andor. This is one thing I wish I could talk to Mahler in the EFAP cast about. They don't seem to understand the soul of something and the feel of something. It's got to have the same vibes. That's why Andor doesn't feel right. It is not Star Wars. Even though it's set in the Star Wars universe and it has Star Wars things going on, I understand it. It's a spy drama. It's about war. It's about revolutions. And it's about power corrupting. That's not Star Wars. However, Star Wars as a property can totally handle those ideas and IP. It's really good that they can tackle that. Unfortunately, that's the type of story you tell when you have a healthy IP. When you have a healthy thing that's going on. These are the side stories that would make people get on fire. The best Star Wars stories people will talk about are things like the Bounty Hunter games. Why? Because that is a fantastic use of Star Wars as a whole. I get to go to a small slice of life and be a bounty hunter and learn about the backstabbing and intrigue in the background. That's really neat because the whole galaxy is flourishing correctly. Now, when the whole galaxy is destroyed, everything's terrible, to give me a slice of life like that is not the right answer. You need to have some big tentpole property that I can point to. That's the main Star Wars. But I like this really weird, well-written niche thing over here. I like this thing over here. That's how a property is usually healthy. And that's why Andor kind of got poo-pooed so much. And that's why I think Andor Season 2 is going to do badly. Because they have to choose. Are they going to add more Star Wars-y stuff to it? In which case they get rid of their own identity and now appeal to the masses? Or are they going to stick to themselves, in which case it's going to be shit on again, and it's going to be wrongfully maligned? It's a terrible position Andor's got itself in.
Huh. Do you think that kind
really
of same
does.
phenomenon had anything to do with Clone Wars doing so well? Because I remember, like, people didn't hate the prequels, but they were looked down upon, and then everyone loves Clone Wars.
So Clone Wars is fascinating.
I guess
It's great.
Clone Wars
Contains
is only liked because people don't seem to remember how awful it was. There's so much
really?
god-awful
Well-
content in Clone Wars. So here's how you know Clone Wars is bad. Any of you fans in the audience who are about to disagree with me, if you had a new person coming in to watch Clone Wars, how many of them would you show Season 1? What about Season 2? Maybe a couple episodes. She'd probably start them in Season 3. You're starting them in Season 3 of a 6-season show. That's enough problems. You know, I know it's 7 seasons, but Season 6 and 7 were so short they can be combined into one for this argument. So you're already cutting out 2 seasons. So you got to make them watch the rest of the show. Okay. Let's not even look at the arcs that are controversial. You're telling me the droid arc, which is 3 to 5 episodes of the droids rolling around zapping other droids, that's high-quality content? That's something that we need to watch? You're not going to tell them to skip that?
Yes.
We're not going to tell him to skip the entire arc about Jar Jar Binks with his girlfriend that Mace Windu has to help Jar Jar get some nookie. And you might say, oh yeah, you should totally skip that arc. Oh yeah, that's where the Queen of Death is, who's casting spells and raises Darth Maul. So you have to watch that arc because you're gonna be like, where did this Queen lady go who's just casting spells? She's over there. She's also not dead, even though that was her canonical death, because we can't write anything right in Star Wars anymore. So yeah, the Clone Wars has got like 5 good arcs in the whole of it, and they're really good arcs though. And the problem with Clone Wars is it started getting mature and started actually exploring really good ideas. However, it bastardized and ruined its own canon. Clone Wars is one of the worst things to happen to Star Wars canonically. It took a big old shit over everything. I don't know why. I look at Clone Wars and I'm fascinated. Because if you actually are a fan of the expanded universe, you should never consider Clone Wars part of the EU. What it did to the EU is horrible. And
It brought back Maul is the main
don't
problem.
even bring them. I got a whole video, by the way, showing how much easier and better you could have written that entire thing. Go watch it. It's my least viewed video on my channel. People hated that video.
Wait,
not because
what?
not because I was wrong, but because it doesn't fit the rest of the channel.
Hang
You
on,
know,
which one?
Yeah, it's my writing workshop video, the one on fixing Darth Maul, because it's so easy to fix the mistakes there. You just have to have some talent as a writer and some respect for your own canon. The problem with Clone Wars, this is why Dave Filoni's not the hero people think he is because he doesn't respect the canon. And this is why all the other modern media sucks. This is why D&D is being torn apart. People don't respect the canon. Unfortunately, sometimes you get saddled with a really weird canon. Sometimes the canon you get saddled with is absolutely insane. Like the World of Darkness canon, which we're going to start talking about right now.
Yes.
So,
Oh, World of
Indeed.
Darkness canon.
World of Darkness.
yes.
Did you
And
know that the bad
humanity's
guys
underside.
already won?
Where to begin?
Yes, so go say that again because you and Astro talked at the same time.
Excellent. I said, did you know the bad guys already won in Mage?
Yeah.
Yeah, like 1,000 years ago.
Yep. Well, not even get to maids. Let's start with
We're
the
just living their
basicness.
ashes.
Wow, why even live?
Yeah. So World of Darkness started out as how do I put this? As a way to let you play the edgy bad guys and to have a bit of a power fantasy. That was always how Vampire was. The idea was you were supposed to play a powerful creature, so you didn't have to worry too much about combat, and you were a bit of a tortured soul. It really focused on the role-playing aspects of this. This is why World of Darkness as a setting blew up so hard. Because this was the first time that instead of everybody sitting there and just calculating tactical math and basically measuring tiles and spending 14 hours to figure out the trajectory of a fireball if you bounce it off a light bulb, no. They didn't worry about this. This game said, screw it. You're going to win every combat or you're going to lose every combat by like 1 billion. Who cares? Let's focus on role-playing and talking to each other and to the vampires. Let's get all hot and sexy and figure out what's going on, with these things. You're a vampire, right? You got to seduce people and lure people. You can't just go up there and punch them in the mouth to get XP. No. And that's how the game turned out. That's how you got the first edition of Vampire and all the lore that we're going to discuss written about from there. So, who would like to start with any details about the World of Darkness setting? Let's start with the very beginning, if possible. Or do you guys even know the intro?
I got
Well, are we
the
starting
intro
with the world?
with
Which
why don't-
or are we starting with Vampire with Cain and Abel?
Well, I
That's
think
what
Cain
I
and
would-
Abel's the oldest story in the vampire setting too.
absolutely.
Are we doing
So-
Are we specifically doing World of Darkness or Chronicles of Darkness or what? Because there's slightly different
Man.
canons between them.
Yeah.
Man, what
There's also a third
a
one that no
game!
one talks
Let's start at the
Yeah.
beginning, guys. Where's the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
what
So
do
the
you-
beginning.
So hey, I think that's one sec, Pops. I think this is a good point to bring up. So we're going to be mixing all three, and yes, I say three canons of World of Darkness for this video. We will try to let you stick
Third
to
one was
only
Monte
World of
Cristo.
Darkness originally, but there are some stories that are too good to not tell from Chronicles of Darkness and from World of Darkness live action roleplay. Yes, the live action roleplay is canon. I would argue the live action roleplay is the super canon because that is the most played version of the game at this point. And it is the one that is the most decentralized. It has a lot of garbage written into it, but as a decentralized canon, the cream comes to the top.
True.
And I think that
And
that's
I'm-
something that the people here have
and
the
of course-
least experience with because we are all sweaty nerds who love math and live in our houses. We don't want to go out and pretend to be vampires in the streets of New Orleans. That sounds fun for like a single night. If you do it, please come let me know, and I'll bring you on the podcast right now so you can tell us all about the time you dressed up as a vampire and had to pretend to bite people for 4 hours. I legitimately want to understand this hobby. It's just not for me.
Bro,
That being
sounds
said-
wild to do.
It is. That being said, I'm pretty sure World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness have the same first 3,000 years of history. It only gets crazy and starts divulging as we get closer to modern times, if I recall.
Yeah, I believe there's a legitimate canon.
The plans are different, which is also important.
Yeah.
But I think the general gist of it, the very beginning of how this even conceptually existed within that world setting is that we had the mother and father of darkness, Cain and Lilith, right?
Yep.
And anyone can jump in if they want to give a little more detail, but I believe the idea was that Lilith was kind of a heresy biblically. I don't think she's actually in the Bible, but she was the one that God created to initially be a companion for Adam, who was not a good woman, and so she kind of was rebellious and all this and evil, and she ended up, I think, eating the fruit of knowledge, at least in the canon from what I heard in this lore video, and basically gained magical powers and got banished from the Garden of Eden and everything. And then the whole thing with Adam and Eve happened, and they had Cain and Abel, and Cain got banished from what he did. I believe we all know what he did, right? He killed someone with a rock.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He
Right.
was the first participant in Smash Bros.
So he was the first ever murderer in recorded history. And I think that also played into the fact that he was the father of vampires because he preyed on people. He wasn't a predator just hunting for prey to survive. He was a murderer because of a human emotion and something like that. So it made him kind of uniquely evil. And then he met up with Lilith a little while later, and they became lovers briefly, and then they had some sort of falling out, I believe, because she said, I'll grant you my magical powers, and he used them to turn him into a vampire. Is this accurate? I'm trying to remember exactly how it went.
That's
But
pretty
something
accurate.
about,
I remember the game pretty well.
she lended him some magical powers or something like that, and he became kind of drunk with power. He refused to relinquish them back to her, and then they became enemies over this whole dispute. And so I believe it's the Sabbat who has that kind of orthodox, traditional, old school kind of conspiracy theory, end of the world story as one of the vampire tribes, and they actually believe that Cain will eventually come back during the apocalypse. I think that's the theory. Again, anyone can jump in. I'm trying to explain everything that I've heard that's relevant to the very beginning.
That
Another thing that I want to branch off of is that the third brother of Cain and Abel, Seth,
Mhm.
has claims of being the first ghoul and as the main ancestor of humanity as well.
Interesting. So
Ghouls are
everyone,
the servants to vampires, if
That's
anyone was wondering.
I was
yeah,
gonna
you
say,
get your if a vampire feeds you enough blood, you become a ghoul and
yeah.
effectively become their servant. Also, sometimes you can play as a ghoul and you get like temporary powers and abilities from your your vampire dad and or mom when they feed you blood.
Mhm.
And in Codex of Darkness, there is an entire hunter society of ghouls who explicitly hunt vampires to steal their blood in order to get new powers and also to not all die. Which is a very cool concept, but also sounds like a horrible thing to be hunted by as a vampire.
One more detail about ghouls, right? It takes a certain amount of like you've had enough blood or the vampire's done enough things for you that you kind of just involuntary like fall under their control, right?
Yeah, I think theoretically you can willingly become a ghoul, but I think
Sure.
most of the time people get tricked into it.
Yeah, that would make more sense because as far as I know, the ghouls are still mortal, right? Like they don't fall under the category of like undead or unliving or magical or anything. They're still technically mortal.
Yeah, they're still technically mortal. I think they might live a little bit longer. I know they can heal if the vampire feeds them blood, but they're still perfectly normal. And most importantly, they can go out in daylight.
Mm.
So they're not like significantly changed.
All right.
Yeah.
Got
And
The
any
funny thing is, you guys were like, oh man, if a mortal like becomes a slave to a vampire. The thing is, like in the game, mortals are just so far down on the totem pole that
right.
pretty much if a vampire decides to abuse a human in game, that's just it. It's like, well, you lose. That's all there is to it. Um,
Yeah, and that
uh,
would have to do with also not to jump ahead in the history of it, but that's why, as I've heard it described, the Camarilla, like the main tribe of vampires with any power, they basically just look at people as like livestock.
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
a very low status kind of, yeah. They're kind of, it's weird because you say dehumanized, but like they're the humans. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
They're, yeah,
it's kind of a funny standard there. You dehumanize people, but they're more human than you.
Hmm.
by definition, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of being hungry and feeding on people, if a vampire doesn't feed on people, they kind of go crazy and become just actual monsters. Normally, they have their humanity.
Right.
It depends on the edition. They have like their mask, their actual personality, people they're bonded with, whether it's a location or something. They have all of these things that like tie them down to being a person, and that's where a lot of the like conflict comes from. But
Mhm.
once you lose all that and you just like become just a pure carnal monster, depending on the edition, I think the name for it changes, but they have a specific name, and you become pretty unkillable apparently, or they become pretty unkillable in game. You're not actually allowed to play as them anymore because they don't have any more humanity. And usually they have to send a bunch of vampires to kill someone like that. And usually they don't die because that's the thing about vampires. They're incredibly difficult to kill.
Yeah, I've heard of that concept. It's about you have a certain amount of humanity, and obviously, when you turn into a vampire, you kind of let the. I think it's the concept is just called like the beast. Like you just have a beast within you, and it's kind of the carnal, animalistic,
Yeah.
non-human thing. If you do lose your humanity, you can become. It's like a fucking Lovecraftian monster almost. I think part of the lore was that there's one of them like living in the sewers under New York City, like this big like flesh monster looking thing. And it's because it's a vampire that lost all of his humanity. He just becomes like this insatiable like beast.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that's old. That's from the original World of Darkness lore.
Yeah,
I
could be.
don't know how it works in the LARP though.
Yeah, the LARP is a bit
Bro, we
different.
don't know anything about the LARP.
Yeah, that's why I suggested if anybody who's watching right now has played in the LARP, please come on, because I could not have time and I don't have any ability to research it. I don't know anybody nearby me who plays it. I don't have any friends who are into it. I don't even have any of my server who's into the LARP.
I don't think I've ever met anybody who does it. I know one guy who LARPs, and I don't think he ever did World of Darkness LARP. I think he just did D&D LARP.
I don't have any friends at all.
I believe that.
But no, but the numbers I see them posting online, it's insane. So there are people out here doing it. I just don't know where they are.
I found an article that said some lady found her husband through Vampire the Masquerade LARP.
I've seen
Good for
multiple
her.
articles about that.
Shout out
Anytime
to
you have
that.
women and men hanging out in the same area, eventually they'll find love together. Unless it's my server, apparently. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh,
Complaining,
Yes.
she's complains all day that she can't find a hubby. Yeah, I don't think she's watching, but she is. Comment, let me
How
know.
many?
She
You
just
know
needs
what the ratio is in there?
a little.
It's a lot of sausage. It's a lot of sausage. That's true.
A lot of
Oh
sausage.
boy.
So there's a fair mechanic I forgot about. So if you reduce a vampire to 0 HP, they enter
Somehow.
something known as Topor or Topor. I don't know if I'm saying it.
Little animal term that you'll hear. So it's torpor, and what that actually means in the natural world is so when a bear goes into hibernation, it's called a state of torpor. It's like a very long resting period.
Yeah, kind of like a coma, except it's not from trauma.
Yeah, but it's hibernation basically. And at least I think that's the general consensus. I guess a coma is still a state of torpor, like it's a state of being.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. And the length of that is actually determined by your current humanity. So usually humanity starts at 7, and you'll be knocked out for 2 weeks. If you have max humanity, it's only a day. If you have 0 humanity and you've become a horrible monster, apparently it's for a millennia or more.
Whoa.
So you're out cold for a long time, but that also means that if someone kills you and they don't kill you properly, or say someone if you're running a game, it's a pretty easy thing to be like, where'd this horrible monster come from? No one knows. All the vampires from back then are gone, or there's only a couple left who actually remember why this guy was killed, or imprisoned, or what his weakness was, things like that.
Is into another little fun term I heard. So vampires obviously technically are people but aren't really people. So they have another concept as the unliving that they call final death, rather than just death. And I think you need to follow some pretty specific qualifications to actually achieve that.
So, I don't know what it is lore-wise. I know mechanical-wise, there are 3 types of damage in World of Darkness. Bashing damage, which is temporary and it goes away once a minute, you lose a bashing damage. Lethal damage, which is much more serious and can take weeks to recover, or aggravated damage. Aggravated damage is truly lethal damage, like incredible damage. So anything magical will be aggravated. Anything where they make a really nasty wound, something that would leave a permanent scar, would be aggravated. And for vampires specifically, they need to have all of their health filled up with aggravated damage before they actually die. And
Wow.
the easiest way to do that is the sun. But yeah, it makes it a pain to kill them. If they have full lethal damage, though, normal people, once they get full bashing, they have to roll to stay awake. I think for vampires, once they get to full lethal, they have to roll to not go into Topor.
Also, fun fact: bullets, guns, they only do bashing to vampires. So if you shoot a vampire as a human, it does approximately fuck all to them. They barely even notice.
Except the video game.
Yeah, but the video game is nonsense.
Well,
They had to make it work because it's a video game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they balanced it for being a game.
Yeah, similar to what they did for BG3.
Yep.
Yeah, you games have to be different than the tabletop.
Well, even in the
If you're-
original,
Kinda. You can't really structure it the same way.
Yeah,
It's like a storyline you have to follow. Yeah.
and games are meant to be challenging. That's something people seem to forget. Game journalists, especially. So, I want to bring a little bit more structure here, real quick. So, I went and found the World of Darkness wiki on White Wolf, and I'm going to go through their history section. I'm going to quickly go through the prehistory stuff. That how many angels there are, or how the angels work, because I think this is really, really interesting. So, the first thing that happens is the Big Bang. Boom. That happens, that's canon. Then God creates everything.
Yeah.
Huh?
Nerds.
Bazinga.
Yes. Bazinga. So, God, the All-Maker, the Infinity of Infinities, creates the angels. He creates 7 houses of angels and made one after another, each creating and governing a different part of the universe. The final piece of this universe is humanity, which possesses a spark of the divine itself, which is pretty cool. Then God gives the 7 angelic houses 2 commands. The first command is they must love humanity as much as they love God. The second command is to never allow humanity to know the angels exist and look over them. The second command upset a lot of the angels because they really wanted to just like hang out with us as humans, and that led to a lot of them being like, well, God, can't, how can we love them if we can't hang out with them? So more and more angels start getting pissed off about this and say, hey, we want humanity to see the world as we see them. Why can't I take humans and bring them to Mars, God? I want to see how cool stuff is. And God's like, you guys can't do that. So then the angels say, well, we're afraid that humans are not going to achieve their true potential. They're just going to go back to being animals. And God says, okay, if you know that what I know, come over here and I will show you. Basically, God's telling the angels, any of you who disagree with me, who really want to know why, I'll show you, but you're not going to like it. Every single one who's been taken is never heard again. The angels think, oh, these guys are killed for the hubris. However, it's not necessarily clear. It could be that by God showing them what he's shown them, they've become as elevated as he is. Therefore, they can't be angels anymore. They're too powerful for angels anymore. Hope that makes sense.
I get that as a concept. How'd you come up with that? That is the most interesting thing I've heard in a while, man.
This is the World of Darkness' lore. It's not my lore.
Is it? So what did they end up
Also,
doing? Is there theories on
Are you
did
sure
they create
this
their
isn't
own
Demon the
universe?
Fallen lore?
Well,
World of
it's all
Darkness
together.
is all
pretty sure
together.
this is
Yeah, it's all the same lore. It's all one
Yeah,
big
this is
book.
from Demon the Fallen, yes, but there are all the World of Darkness setting together. So this is where the
Well,
angels
then
are.
does that?
Go ahead, hang on one sec, Pops. So the angels are mad. Maybe this answers your question. One of the angels, Ramahil, the angel of the Force House, he gets a vision that everything's going to be destroyed. And it gets stronger each day. And one day he's like, I need to tell people about it. He goes to his bosses and they say, you're just joshing, bro. You're smoking some good reefer. Calm down. Nothing bad ever happens. Nothing ever happens around here. He gets upset, so he then calls 7 friends from the 7 houses and asks them what they can do. This is called the Great Debate. They are all concerned, but they can't agree on any course of action. As they're in the middle of their meeting, Lucifer kicks down the door and says, following God's commands is impossible, and I will only follow the command to love God. Amrahil and Belial side with him, while Lila and Usael side with God. The others are currently unnamed. As night sets, Lucifer and a bunch of angels reveal themselves to humankind and give them the gift of knowledge. This is the moment with the apple. This is where civilization starts. Then, during the dawn, the Archangel Michael brings the flaming sword down and gets into a big fight with them.
Oh, I know he's in the...
Yeah, unfortunately for God, Lucifer and the fallen angels have already given humanity so many ups they built civilization. Only about 1/4 of humanity sides with God. The rest side with evil, including Adam and Eve. And Michael is beaten during this thing and takes 1/3 of the angels with him. At this point, the Age of Wrath begins. This is when God touches the cosmos, and he decides the Garden of Eden is destroyed, paradise is lost. Instead of the universe being perfect, it's now damaged and broken, because what was happening with humanity was working the way it did, and now they're not. They're ripping things apart and tearing things down, which causes mankind to be mortal. They broke the machine. They destroyed everything. So it's kind of their fault.
Man,
Then Lucifer makes the 5 legions of hell, and angels and demons had massive wars against each other, from what I'm reading here. They begin trying to make their own heaven for humans, the demons do, which ends up turning into hell. Cain invents murder when he kills his brother Abel, which alters existence, because beforehand, people would fight each other, but nobody could die. Cain killing Abel starts it, which triggers the first maelstrom, which is when the underworld's just getting ripped and torn apart, because you could still die normally. It's just there was no murder beforehand. It completely changes things.
Yeah, I did appreciate that when I was looking up on Cain. The fact that it was, murder. It was like a totally new concept. The fact that it's driven by this sense of, I don't know, spite or hatred or whatever. It's a totally different thing, just in the nature of what it was.
I think this might be a good time to kind of point out that a lot of the World of Darkness lore is like this. It's familiar. It's things that you can kind of immediately get a grasp on, because it's in the neighborhood of what you know from popular folklore and whatnot. But it's not exactly the same. None of it is so close that you can just one-to-one take it. You can never just be like, oh, well, I read Dracula, so I know how to deal with a vampire. It doesn't work exactly like that. It's familiar but different enough that it's all still new, which I think is a great strength for the setting. I think if they had just made it so that all of the vampires were just vampires as you knew them, I don't think it would be nearly as popular of a setting as it is today. I think the sense of novelty that you get is great for it.
And I think that, I know that this show's inspired by it, even though I don't say it, but I think this is why something like Supernatural is also so popular. It's that same zeitgeist. It's that same familiarity with something that's being remixed and pulled in a new way. There's a couple more important things that happen in this piece of lore that I want to cover before we fully finish the demon side of the things, if you will. Lucifer then sends a whole bunch of, his soldiers out. There's another big fight. There's a new force called the Malachim, which I don't really know what it is. It's kind of like not angels and not demons. They appear during this time of atrocities. They're like a third faction. They do a long march. They have a bunch of wars. And during this time, Lucifer sends some of his generals to protect humanity. Asmodeus and Abaddon are one of the people who do that. And they are afraid that they're going to become servants to humanity. So they realize, hey, what if we sabotage everything and prove to Lucifer that humans suck? So to do this, they start, how do I put this? Having one-on-one sessions with imprisoned women to create Nephilim, who they use to dominate.
Oh,
yeah.
The Nephilim.
Yeah. There's one person listening to this podcast right now who's now in the bone zone from us mentioning the Nephilim. But, the Nephilim show up, and they start absolutely wrecking stuff because they have all the powers of angels and humanity at the same time. They begin dominating mankind. Lucifer finds out. Lucifer barely has a chance to kill the Nephilim before all the demons are locked in hell besides him. So now he wanders Earth aimlessly. According to the demons, that is what happened to the world.
Wow.
Now,
and they ought to know.
Yeah, they probably do know.
For anyone in the chat historically that doesn't know about the Nephilim, they are mentioned in the Bible, and they are you can't prove it in real life, but people have discovered things that are theorized to be Nephilim. If you just look up red-headed giants, it's a super interesting thing. So I really appreciate the fact that they took that much into account, actual real life conspiracy theories and things from the Bible that nobody even knows about until they start getting into it. That's crazy. The level of
it gets better. So that's
of course.
So that's how they think about it from what we'd expect. The Pharaoh, who are like the proto-werewolves, also have a theory of how humanity got created. So the Big Bang happens. Then the Weaver shows up. The Weaver begins creating galaxies and planets and black holes. The Weaver is maybe God, but it's more like a spider, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The Weaver fights the Worm, and the Worm is the guy who's making black holes and tearing spaces in reality. So the Weaver and the Worm get into many, many battles over the Earth. Eventually, life is created, and spirits are created on Earth. And then Anasia is created. Now, what's cool about Anasia is a supreme spirit. She's the queen of the Ananzi. And as you probably know, the Ananzi are like were spiders. I guess. Ananzi. The reason this is super interesting is that is actually the name of a trickster spirit from West African folklore, Ananzi. Mm-hmm. So this tells us that these guys are directly talking about African spirits now.
Ananzi is that might be like a. Yep. I think that's part of a children's story or something. It's a spider named like Ananzi.
Yep, that's what he is. He's the spider trickster.
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman wrote a book called Ananzi Boys, which is a pretty good book.
Yep, great book. Gaiman's a fantastic author. I think he's highly underrated. People talk about a lot of other authors who I think are overrated. Gaiman is really underrated. His books are always really well researched and fun, but I don't think he gets as much public credit as he does. Author people love him, but public people don't talk about him enough.
Yeah, I love Neil Gaiman.
And his comic book work is excellent and especially well researched. I could go into that, but I still haven't read Sandman.
Don't worry, we'll make you read it one of these days. So Anansia starts out. They start making more insects. They start making insect races. They create other species as well. They start getting into different wars. Then all the insect races have civil wars. They trap the worm underneath hell. They create civilizations such as the Murakol. They then kill each other, and it's a mass extinction of it. Then, as they all start dying out, certain species realize that they can start shifting their form. That's when humanity also starts to come out. Humanity starts naturally evolving, and through their worship, they create another spirit called Gaia. Gaia may be around beforehand, may not be. I think other people are said to have created her from their memory, but they're not exactly sure. So Gaia then creates these humans, loves them, and creates the Garu, which are the werewolves in this setting, to help protect humans.
Everyone knows. Everyone knows what Gaia is, right? In Greek mythology,
Mother Earth.
Yeah.
So Gaia is the Titan that existed before the Greek gods that represented Mother Earth. Yeah.
And she creates these nature spirits as well. Also, the fairies are created by Worm while he's in hell, which is interesting because fairies aren't mentioned very much elsewhere. Then Gaia attempts to kill all of the world to root out the corruption of Worm and uses glaciers to do so. So this is why you have the Ice Age. Then from the Ice Age, the Garu come out and start conquering and killing everything. Up until 100,000 years ago, when the Ice Age leaves, and humans start leaving Africa and forming different cultures. Some Garu discourage the influence on various cultures, resulting in what is called primitive. Others are encouraged to focus on society, and that's what evolved into our things. The first hominid Ananzi is born in the mountains of South Africa. That's where the myth comes from. And that is also the name of the first Neanderthal. There's a little bit of contention about which one is born first.
Well, hang on. Before you said West Africa, and I think you just said South Africa. Is it West, right?
I couldn't tell you. I know it's sub-Saharan.
I know it's West Africa in real life, but this thing says South on the wiki. The wiki might be wrong about that. I know he's West African. I know he is. Because
it's irritating that South is a direction, and also South Africa is just like a place. It's like there's a lot of South Africa guys.
Nothing's more irritating than northwestern South America, because that's an important part of history. Because that's Colombia and Panama. So we talk about when you're reading a lot of historical books, like, oh yes, so the Americans sent troops to northwestern South America. I'm like, I hate you all.
Like counting on your fingers, like wait.
It sounds like what is it? One of these two. It sounds like how Greenland is more north, west, east, and south than Iceland.
Yeah, it's upsetting. I hate it. But yeah, so at this point, this is where stuff gets really interesting for the werewolf mythology.
Yeah.
As the Ice Age ends, the Neanderthals start getting into a war, and it finds out that they're tainted by the worm. So the humans are told to wipe out the Neanderthals. While they do, some of them escape to Ireland and become the Ter du Dwanen, which is an important Irish myth.
It's
Some of them-
Twaheaded.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I don't have enough, Lucky Charms in my throat to pronounce it.
Yeah, you don't speak well.
I don't. Then, during the Americans' timeline, Sasquatches start showing up, Wendigos start showing up, Croatan starts showing up. All this weird stuff starts happening because the influence of this evil worm god. And then from here, this is when you start getting the normal stuff. Mastodon and Bison are hunted in Las Vegas. You got Osiris is walking the earth regularly, hanging out with people. This is when, the synagogue in Galilee is. All the prehistorical stuff that you would expect, like Doggerland, Sinks, all that stuff. So, yeah.
Yep. And to note, the Wendigo were actually a werewolf tribe.
Yes.
In the
so
game?
those are the two theories as to how the world got created. And they both can't exist at once.
And then there's the wizard, the mage one.
Do the wizards have one?
Yes. I'm gonna
Yeah.
summarize it because we don't talk about the mage because they're the worst
Strange.
guys in mage. And also, I don't have the old World of Darkness mage lore in front of me. But in mage, supposedly, a long time ago, we all lived in Atlantis, and Atlantis was a great place where we had like all of this science and history, and we were able to like ascend our souls to like near divinity and reach higher planes of existence. And basically, a group of mages decided, you know what? Reaching a higher plane of existence and enlightenment is really cool, but only for us, not for those other guys. And so they did a bunch of things. They sunk Atlantis, and now they secretly control the world from their higher plane of existence. And the ability to actually like ascend to that higher plane gets weaker and weaker with each passing year because of their influence.
I believe so like the main thing that I've heard regarding Atlantis and how that whole thing devolved was that it was like different levels of consciousness, right? And kind of as society became a little bit more like decadent and like self-centered and everything, we lost that.
Yeah, and we lost our ability to become super
magic.
wizard immortal gods.
Right.
Mage is
yeah,
great.
that makes sense. I'm like trying to piece it together with every other piece of like mythology I've heard that doesn't have to do with this. And I'm like, you know what? Everything kind of checks out. I really appreciate that, dude. It's awesome.
In the game, I have the most confirmed self Minecrafts in Mage.
So, this is more Chronicles, less World of Darkness, and Chronicles lore is simple, much simpler. In some ways, some of it is really good, but in some ways, it's a lot less impressive compared to what came before.
Like what they did with Changeling is just made it like as dark as everyone else.
Well, I mean, there's that. There's also, they just simplify it. Like the werewolf creation myth is once upon a time there was Mother Moon and Father Wolf, and they loved each other very much. And Father Wolf stopped spirits from invading our world, and then he was betrayed by his children. And now, Mother Moon like hated her children and cursed them to become werewolves, and now she's forgiven some of the werewolf tribes, and that's the werewolf lore for Chronicles of Darkness.
Well, hang on. There is one thing that the King mentioned that was part of the werewolf thing, was that it was like, was it the werewolf, like they were a separate kind of little subset of humanity or civilized something that decided that they weren't going to take the same route as like the mainstream, and so they kind of, I believe the implication would have been that they devolved into these like half man, half animal, like beasts things.
What it was,
Did you mention
some of the werewolves didn't want to protect humanity, and that's when they devolved. They eschewed their duty of protection. That's when they became the Wendigos and stuff like that. instead of helping
Hmm.
humans to start hunting them.
Because environmentalism, man.
Werewolf is actually the environmentalism game.
Yeah.
It is like the stuff with Pantex, if that's how you pronounce it, is so insane. And like with the Pantex book, they actually like have all the typical 1980s environmental story gimmicks. Like,
Oh,
and
the
I guess
trope.
the 90s too, because they have a rip-off Sonic the Hedgehog.
Amazing.
Like, no,
It's
seriously, they do. I posted the image a bit earlier. I can bet you I can dig it up.
Excellent. While you're digging it up, since we were talking about how tanky vampires are, werewolves are significantly more tanky. Vampires are so each World of Darkness game in the actual system, the storyteller system, there are 3 types of attributes: physical, social, and mind. And the 3 main games focus on a specific aspect. With Mage, it's more of the mind aspect. It kind of makes sense. A bunch of wizards, you're solving puzzles, you're discovering hidden truths and secrets. For Vampire, it's obviously the more social part. And Werewolf is the actual combat game. Werewolves also only take bashing damage from bullets, unless it's silver, but they also regen health at an incredible rate. Vampires can regen health by like expending blood. Werewolves just do it for free without any effort. Mid combat, they can heal pretty much all the damage they've taken. It's pretty hilarious. And mages are just as tanky as normal people. They're not super tanky. They don't have anything like that. But Mage lets you do so many ridiculous things that it doesn't usually matter.
Cast spell, turn blood into bees. Good luck, idiot.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that because Pag, he would always play Matter Wizards in Mage.
Yep.
And he would do things like that. He used turn bones to soup, and once hit
Turn my
me-
own bones to soup.
Yep. That was a good time. He's opened up portals to the center of the earth to try and launch lava at people. And,
Burn myself in half.
Yep. Yep, there's that. He
I want to do this badass thing. You die via that badass thing.
I remember in one game, Hag kept on turning random pillars in like structural pillars in a building into C4 so that he could use them to make weapons. But the problem is in Mage, it depends on the edition of Mage. In Chronicles, there's even 2 different versions. But in the original World of Darkness, or at least in New World of Darkness, every time you like casted magic in front of people, it created a paradox that was supposed to be unbelievable. And if too many people unbelieved it, they would unbelieve you out of existence. And they unbelieved Pag's heart out of existence once.
Yeah.
In
I also
the
turned
new-
myself to stone.
He turned himself to stone, and I had him exorcised because by accident, and sent his soul to heaven, which was funny. In New Chronicles, though, instead what happens is if you try to do something that shouldn't be possible, there's like a stacking debuff, and it just straight up won't happen. A real problem in Mage is you can be confronted by the police, and if the police don't believe in magic, your fireball legitimately won't work. There are different types.
Okay, that's kind of fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's horrifying. Now, some types of magic will just work. Like, for example, a lot of things that deal with electronics, unless someone sees the electronics being manipulated, people can conceptualize the idea of electronics randomly failing. So a lot of that stuff, it's called subtle magic. Loud magic, though, it's fantasy stuff like fireballs and flying and things.
Turning
like
people
that.
to stone.
Turning people to stone or turning yourself to stone, as you learned. Mage lets you be very ridiculous if your GM lets you get away with it, which they're kind of encouraged to. In Mage, there are like spells similar to games like D&D. But unlike D&D, you're more encouraged to actually just make up spells on the spot. There are different schools of magic, and depending on how many ranks you have in each school, you are allowed to do different things. And the things you can do are very vague. It's things like at rank 2, you can create or destroy things related to your thing. So if you're a matter wizard, it means you can create or destroy matter. I think actually create and destroy might be 5. That might be the highest level. There's also time magic, which is ridiculous. You can do funny things like pause time, of course, or you can do more reasonable things like see a guard and be like, actually, that guard ran 5 minutes late to work today, so he's not here right now.
That's hilarious.
Hit him with these aren't the droids you're looking for.
You can do that. That's Mind. That's its own school. There's also Primal, which is like magic, things that don't really fit into any of the other types of magic. We'll go into that. Old Mage, First Edition Mage, or Old World of Darkness Mage has a lot of I want to say it's almost more like Chinese fantasy stuff with like the whole inner a magic thing. You have like an
Cultivation.
arcane avatar that's your soul.
I don't know too much about Chinese the belief system.
Wushu stuff.
Wow.
They have a lot of stuff going on. It's its own genre. And Old Mage has a little bit of that. New Mage, not so much. New Mage, it's more like your soul gets taken to a dimension with a magic tower. Like, if you're the type of mage that gets access to primal magic at the beginning, you end up in a different world where there are Old Testament angels everywhere. And that's where you get your magic powers. There's some pretty interesting stuff related to that. Another
It sounds interesting on its head. I don't need to see the stuff related. It's already interesting.
It already has a lot going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another interesting thing that I don't know if you wanted to talk about this, kid, is actually the differences between the editions, because mage, werewolves, and vampire, they keep the same general idea, but they change a lot of the little details. But Demon the Descent versus Demon the Fallen are completely different games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. You talk about this, because all I have is a list of about a dozen absolutely nutty like pieces of D&D, not D&D, World of Darkness lore that I just want to bring up and talk about because I think they're funny.
Yeah.
That's all I gathered, because I wanted you guys to really explain this to me and do the research for it.
All right, excellent. Well, I'll mention, so Demon the Descent, you talked a little bit about in the prehistory. It's quite literally about actual biblical demons. Lucifer's all over the place. There are the different clans. Some angels sided with God, some angels sided with the other houses. It's very, very Old Testament with a twist. Demons the Descent is about a machine known as the God Machine that created robots known as angels. And when these robots gain free will, they become demons. So Pag,
hang on. So
Okay,
were they
go on.
robots? So were they robots to begin with? Because
Yes.
if they can get free will, I mean,
Yeah, they were robots to begin with, and they're still robots afterwards. They're just malfunctioning robots, which is a problem for the machine.
wow.
It's a spy game. It's a supernatural spy game, and it is so fucking cool. It is legitimately the coolest thing in all of World of Darkness, hands down. Like I just love it so much. The idea that you're like trying to like make yourself out to be like a regular person. Like the whole idea is you need to try and be regular, because if you don't, the like forces of heaven are going to find you and they are going to fuck you up. And not only will they kill you, they will like level blocks. They will destroy everything. So it's just really neat, and it's also like they mix supernatural and science fiction stuff together, because I mean, you are a robot, but all of the like robot stuff, it all works on magic, and it all works on like rule of supernatural magical nonsense. So like when you make your character, you're kind of like building there's things like having thrusters on your character and like building yourself with like laser guns and shit. It's excellent. High tier. Love it.
You get robot parts. That being said, angels don't have to look at angels and demons. They don't have to look like robots. They can get much more obscure.
Yeah.
And
you
so
never know.
You never know. So here, let's go over the basics. So, Demon the Descent kind of started its own little sub thing known as the God Machine Chronicles, which kind of led to Chronicles of Darkness. So the God Machine, it's not the biblical God per se. What it is, it's more left up to GM interpretation. In fact, in the book, there's even a whole thing like, what exactly is the God Machine? Is it a piece of alien technology that's trying to repair itself by using Earth and crashed? Is it a divine machine created by like an old pagan deity that wants revenge, and this is how it stays relevant? Among a couple of other things. So when it creates an angel, the angel can fall. It can gain sentience and become a demon. As a demon, you have a cover. A cover is your, it's like who you are as a human being. They do certain things. They have their own flaws. Sometimes they have their own family. And you can obtain more covers. You can spend EXP, which is literally you altering reality, because the God Machine can alter reality and you are an extension of it, to generate new things. Or you can steal it from people. You can like do, World of Darkness has always been about like being the big scary monster. You can straight up create Faustian bargains for people to do and try to like add loopholes to trick people. And part of that though is that the machines are actually considered more human than vampires. Vampires have humanities. Demons actually have integrity, which is the same stat humans have. And all of their covers have integrity, but their integrity isn't based off of morality. It's based off of how real they are to the world. As a demon, if you don't like do your daily life thing, if you don't do your day-to-day living, acting as a person, playing with your dog, seeing your wife, your integrity starts to fall apart, and when it breaks, your cover is blown, and the God Machine will come after you. And that's the whole thing, is trying to stop the God Machine from coming after you. Because it's not very nice. The God Machine is also strange and inscrutable. Sometimes there are dungeons, effectively, that are facilities that the God Machine is building up because it's built itself all into reality. You can find empty rooms in some of these facilities, which just have nothing but thousands of screws on the floor, all shaped in a specific pattern for some like bizarre, archaic reason. You can like enter rooms that go nowhere. They sort of break reality down. And a lot of playing to the like stealth aspect of the game is trying to never be caught, but also trying to disrupt the God Machine from destroying your way of life. In God Machine Chronicles and Demons game, the God Machine could violently fuck up reality. And a really important part is trying to stop that, because the more it messes with reality, the less likely you can live in it. And also the less you want to live in it, because your character still has human emotions as a demon, as a sentient AI. You want to live in a nice world, maybe. Also, you can summon parts of your machine body as a human and, pop out thrusters and machine gun arms. As long as too many people don't see it, it's totally cool.
Yeah, it's just a very neat concept for a game that is not really replicated very many other places, I don't think.
I don't think yeah.
There's like Paranoia, and that's like the only game I can really think of that kind of replicates the sort of like spy fantasy that they've got going on.
It's
That's
also
really
kind
cool.
of the other end where you're trying. the whole not getting caught is you're the spy, like, pretending to be a human in reality. You can actively combat the god machine. That can be what the game is about, or it could just be you trying to be your whatever your cover is. You're just trying to be a happy guy with his wife and kids, and God is constantly sending angels to try and dismantle you.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
very.
So they're robots in the lore. I always thought the term for it was like automatons, at least like passable as like a living being, but they always, they're
Well,
following
that's more
orders.
like androids. That's more like androids. It's a man-shaped robot that passes as a robot or passes as a human. But there's also Prometheans. Funny you should mention it. Prometheans.
Frankenstein people, which is also in Chronicles.
Yeah. Because Prometheans is like created things, and there's all sorts of different ways you can become a Promethean. But one of them is someone built a robot, like you're a robot. Other ones are more like Frankenstein type monsters. Others are more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles type deals, where you're mutated by something or another. Prometheans is pretty neat. I don't know if there's any like deeper lore to Prometheans, because I didn't ever research the deeper lore. I just played the game and was like, cool, I can have anti-material rifles in my arms. Deal.
Honestly,
but yeah,
no research that
a lot more sense now.
for real.
Yeah, everyone who knows about Prometheus, you really can't look at like a major historical kind of, whether you want to call it biblical, religious, or whatever you're following. Like Prometheus as a concept is like a major part of human religious lore, like Lucifer and Prometheus are kind of the same dude.
Yeah, and that's kind of the theme of that game, is that they're stealing the fire of creation from God and making their own new sentience. Which is
there you go. Yeah.
But
How about that?
But I think the important thing, though, because I actually have read their lore, because I was the one running said game, is Prometheans themselves are very tragic figures. They want to be human, but they're not. They're missing something. And that's a big part of gameplay, is that instead of having integrity or humanity or anything like that, you have, I don't remember the name of it, but you have a reverse mechanic where you start really low and you try to build it up. You're trying to actually become a person. But because reality rejects you, because you're kind of an abomination, bad things happen. People will hate you if you hang around them. If you live in one area for too long, like, things get warped and start to melt and fall apart.
Crops die, animals get diseases.
Yeah. And the powers that be know about this. That's actually a thing in hunters, that there are people who hunt Prometheans because, well, one, you
They're
can
awful.
take them. Yeah, they're awful to have around. They do, like, it does bad things to the world around them, even though the Prometheans themselves are pretty pitiful.
They really are.
I do think it's important to say right now that yes, if you like Supernatural and you think that show's cool and it's got a really interesting concept, this is the game for you. Go look into it. Hunters are literally called that. You can find a lot of just straight up stolen stuff here. That's why I'm be interested to see if anybody has an interview with the creators of Supernatural if they ever played this game, because this game came in the 90s and Supernatural's in 2004. It was 92 is when the first Supernatural.
Well, here's the thing, though. Hunter the Vigil and Hunter the I don't remember what the original one was called, are kind of different. That's another there we go, going back to the differences between the two editions. The new Hunter, it's more like humanity, fuck yeah, you're just a normal dude. If you do have any special abilities, you have something called a lesser template. Templates are what they call the different types of characters in World of Darkness mechanically. Lesser templates are the same thing, but way less powerful. Like, instead of being a vampire, for example, the lesser template in vampire are the ghouls. Because ghouls aren't normal people, but they're not that different from normal people.
Yeah, they're not ultra powerful. Like a human versus a vampire, it's just like, oh, you're just gonna get stomped. That's that. But a human versus a ghoul,
you can do some stuff against a ghoul.
Mm-hmm. But in the original Hunter back in the 90s and stuff, you actually did get magic powers. I don't remember too much of the lore. I think it's unknown entities beyond their comprehension for some reason want to help out humanity. Whether they have
reverse of beast.
Yeah, it's the
See
reverse.
who watch Supernatural are laughing right now because he's trying to make the assertion that this is different, but that is very much how Supernatural the show is.
I only watched season 1, so maybe more things happen.
I only watched the Scooby-Doo episode.
It's exactly identical. It's
okay. Well, then
Supernatural's
in that case,
fantastic. It's great for the first 5 seasons. I'd say me and Dad are going through them right now. I think it probably peaks at season 3, to be honest. But it's definitely worth watching the first few seasons of that show. You don't got to go up to 12 or 14. It gets real bad.
It gets silly, yeah. It gets real silly. But yeah, so kind of a funny thing about Hunter is that you're so weak. Even with the you get like a bunch of tech and whatnot, and you kind of learn the weaknesses of various monsters. But even so, you're still a human. You're still encountering vampires that have the ability to just tell you to do things, and you just do them. There's no role. There's no anything. Yeah, you just do it. Like if they tell you to do it, you do it. So you have to do all sorts of ridiculous things. In one game, I basically, in order to defend myself against vampires, I built the entire player housing into just a giant bunker. And if you wanted to get into the front door, you had to pass through just like a pressure chamber that would just instantly give anyone the bends if it was turned on. And even that, the vampires figured out a way around it, so it was totally useless. But yeah, you have to go to ridiculous lengths to try and defend yourself, and even then, you're still hopelessly outclassed.
Wow, it's a very high lethality game.
Yeah, which I think is fun. It's kind of fun to be the human versus something that totally outclasses you.
It's funny because I've seen debates online about whether people say the hunters are the only morally good people or characters or whatever in the universe, but it's morals based on the fact that you're human. You know what I mean? It kind of takes out of the the idea of protecting your tribe, I guess. But humans, I don't know, they're inclined to be that way.
I think that Wraith also would fit as good people, but we'll get to
Wraith are dead.
Because vampires, they see themselves as bad people. So it's kind of hard to say vampires, they think they're the good, because vampires don't think they're the good people. Werewolves, they think they're the good people. They think they're protecting Earth and whatnot. And from a certain point of view, they are kind of right. They're in their canon. There are spirits that live in the wilderness and whatnot, and you are protecting them. Humans are encroaching on them. So from a less human-centric point of view, yeah, sure, werewolves could be good guys. Prometheans, they just want to be human. They just want to be a real boy. Sure, they cause plagues and people to spontaneously die and crops to wither and famines and all sorts of awful things. But they just want to be a real boy. They can't help that. And that's kind of a lot of the moral conflict in a lot of them. Of course, then there's things like Beast and Vampire, where it's just yeah, no, you're the bad guy. That's that. You're just evil.
Yeah, it's kind of once you become multiple different factions that have the same kind of ability of thinking, the same level of thinking, you can't really differentiate.
Yeah, hard to pin morals once you got things like that going on.
Mm-hmm. And some of the games, it's pretty neutral. We'll touch on Fae once you finish your thought, but they're also very tragic, and it's pretty hard to say they're bad people.
Yeah, why not go into Fae? What's up?
Go to Fae right now. It's a great time.
Okay.
Sure.
So I don't actually know
that the setting's mostly ripped off.
What
the
about
setting's mostly ripped off from Neil Gaiman's Sandman, which, as previously mentioned, I still haven't finished. It's because it's called Changeling the Dreaming. It is literally taken, and they outright mention Neil Gaiman in the source book.
That's not a bad thing, though. I wish more people here. this is going to be a hot take. I am fully for intellectual property rights and all that. I got you. Rip off better things. Stop ripping off Buffy. None of you people know how to write Buffy. Not every character are high school girls. Stop ripping off Buffy.
Sucks.
Buffy doesn't suck. Buffy in everything sucks. Buffy as a show about high schoolers who are above a pit that makes them moodier, who have to deal with the fact that they have to go to school and have supernatural powers. That show works fantastic for Buffy. Don't take Buffy's writing and put it in Star Trek, which is supposed to be people who've been like military people for 30, 40 years at the height of their career. That's not how they should act. They shouldn't act like high school girls. Stop doing that. Go rip off better stuff. I'm happy they ripped off Neil Gaiman. I much prefer they rip off other terrible, less terrible things and say, hey, let's actually expand our idea. Instead of everybody just trying to say, I'm going to write the next Firefly or I'm going to write the next Buffy. Gosh, it's infuriating that every character is like that. And it's because they don't know how to write things.
20 years.
Well, it's because they don't know how to write things. Because Buffy is really enjoyable as a show. It's quippy and its character work stands out. But, like, it's written that way because the characters are high schoolers. Go write a show about high schoolers if you want to write shows about high schoolers, you stupid people.
Exactly, dude. That's why Buffy works and why it's so fucking... Like, it
So
literally
life.
with test of time and shit, because it knows what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
So, like,
it
when the
knows
characters
it's
act like emotional
funny.
idiots, it's like they're high schoolers. What do you expect from them?
So speaking of which, can you touch briefly on the Changeling the Dreaming lore? Because I know a lot about Changeling the Lost, but I don't actually know that much about the Dreaming.
All right, Astro, this is all you, buddy.
Okay, let me think about the best way. Let's see, should I just say how it ripped off from Sandman? 'Cause I do feel like
Then
that's
as you're
the
speaking, you
easiest.
can naturally tell us how it ripped off Sandman.
So firstly, let's explain by defining a few words. A changeling is a type of fairy that can transform into a person and basically live the life of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And like Fae is about almost regaining the hope in your childhood. But it's actually a lot like another Neil Gaiman DC comic book, Books of Magic. So so the changelings are a rip-off from their home world, which is called Arcadia. And it's all about trying to get back that imagination.
Interesting.
Imagination of
They get their imagination back. They become a real boy?
I'm pretty sure I actually don't really know. But I only know the stuff they rip off from Sandman.
That's
And I haven't read Sandman, so I don't know everything about Sandman.
well, it's better than
I can tell you more about the Dreaming. And that's like a...
Somebody else, why don't we quickly go and scan the other Changeling and see what's going on with that one for us?
Changeling World of Darkness rather than Chronicles.
Which one is which for Changeling? I know Changeling the
So Changeling the Lost is the Chronicles. That's the one me and Shia or Pag have played and know about. The Dreaming is the old World of Darkness one.
So you don't know anything about Dreaming. So why don't you look up? Actually, Astro, why don't you look up Dreaming while Pag and Shadow here tell us about the Lost since they played it.
Sure.
So in Changeling the Lost, you play as a Humi, who was abducted by the Changelings. And the
It's kind of a
Changelings,
reverse of the mythology.
yeah. And the Changelings are all sorts of strange when they take you. They might do any old thing to you. Like sometimes they have you as like a jester in their court, and they have you do things. Other times they turn you into a lamp, and you're a lamp for 200 years. And as you might expect, such a thing, being a lamp for 200 years, has some deleterious effects on your psychology. But also it has some pretty bad effects on you physically. So it changes you, it warps you, it makes you stranger. And then, the beginning of the game, when you start the game as players, you have finally gotten free. You have finally left and gotten out into the world. So
now you're kind of trying to, get your old life back. The problem is that when the changelings do a steal, they leave someone there in your place who is exactly like you. And so that's a problem for you for getting your life back because there's some other guy who's been living in your life the whole damn time.
She's the last 200 years.
Exactly. Although for you it could have been 200 years, while for him he's only 23 years old. So that's kind of the immediate conflict in the game is you and your double trying to fit back into your own life. But also the fairies, they generally want you back. They don't want to have you just wandering around out there. So they're trying to get you back. In addition to that, and as you might imagine, you really don't want to be back. Most people, they don't want to be a lamp for another 200 years.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna correct a couple of terms there that you misremembered.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you are kidnapped by the Fae, and the Fae are the sort of very old-timey Fae you're thinking about, horrible fairies. They're likened more to eldritch gods than normal fairies. Very spooky. And yeah, normally in fairy mythology, a changeling is the child that is replaced with a fairy.
Mm-hmm.
In Changeling the Lost, you are the changeling is the person who's been taken, and they've been physically changed because they've been in Arcadia the whole time. And as Pag said, they've been, maybe they've become a lamp, maybe they became a sword, maybe they were a slave, a servant, a less savory thing. They could be anything. The people that you're replaced with are called foundlings, and they don't actually have to be a part of the story. It actually depends on the GM. I always included them, though. So the foundlings are the actual fairies that you were replaced with, what would normally be called a changeling in mythology. But sometimes, by the time people escape Arcadia, it's been 200 years and their family is dead. Sometimes the foundling doesn't know that they're a foundling and they're a nice person. Sometimes they're a psychotic monster who's already murdered your entire family. The whole thing with Changeling the Lost is that you are truly lost. Even if you do manage to beat your foundling, befriend your foundling, whatever, and regain your old life, you've been so changed and warped by your time in Arcadia that you can't actually fit into your old life, even if you try to. And because of that, there's a whole society of changelings. They have their own court, their own fairy courts. I think the default setting for changeling takes place in Miami, where the King of Summer, who is a really powerful old changeling, has been in control for so long that Miami is always hot and it's always summertime. And there's a lot of neat things like that. You get some very fairy-like abilities. All of your abilities are called blessings and curse. They confer a negative and a benefit. There is a place that is in between Arcadia and the natural world where a lot of adventures can take place. You have to avoid the Wild Hunt, which is basically the Legmen of the Fae, who will come and try to snatch you away and take you back there. And also you can meet goblins and hobgoblins and other minor fairies who may try to help you or sell you things or just generally be very strange bedfellows. It's a pretty neat system.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think, at least for me and Pag's taste, it fit better than Vampire with the sort of self-horror thing. Because Vampire, I mean, you become a blood-sucking monster. Changeling, you've been stolen, you're out of time, out of place. I think it it's more
I don't think I'm gonna be this might be a hot take. But I don't really think the horror aspect of Vampire really works. Because you are the horror. I don't think it really works when you're the spooky thing, because it's not spooky if you're spooky. You're the big powerful bad thing. So it's not really that spooky. But with Changeling, something incredibly awful has been done to you, and you need to run away, or that awful thing will happen again. Like you're an out of place person in your own life and in your own world, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot more narratively that you can do to build horror with Changeling rather than there is with Vampire. Because when you're doing horror, when you're trying to build horror, it really is building horror. You're trying to get to this endpoint. You're kind of starting with a normal setting, and then you're slowly dribbling in unsettling and strange things until it becomes this horrifying, like totally out of reality experience. Whereas if you just immediately start like right off the bat, like pow, you're a vampire. It's like, well, the build up is gone. There's no build up to that. It just is what it is. Whereas with Changeling, you can really like build up the horror and whatnot. Especially, I mean, if you want to start the players with being like, oh well, you've got amnesia. You don't even remember what actually happened to you during the Fey realm, and then you slowly drip feed them what has happened and what will happen if you go back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that works better.
Also,
yeah, in Changing,
oh sorry,
it's almost like that, but without the depression.
Yeah.
No kidnapping involved.
Oh, in the dreaming, it's like that, but without the kidnapping.
Yes,
I see.
like they get visions of their past lives in Arcadia.
That's kind
because
of
they're born as half fairy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the player character of Changeling was always half fairy, but didn't realize it and had glimpses of the past of Arcadia and was awoken to this by different methods.
Oh
That's
my
how you
God.
get the different type of clans.
Is Princess the Dreaming the real sequel to Changeling the Dreaming?
Mm-hmm.
Or Princess the Hopeful, rather?
That would be nutty. That'd be uncovering deep lore.
Do we want to mention Princess the
Because that's
Hopeful?
Well, I mean,
I
it's
think
a fan-made thing.
True, it is.
Mention it now. It's a good time to talk about it if you want to mention it. We got an hour left.
Okay, I haven't played it, so I don't have that much experience with it, but Princess the Hopeful is probably like the biggest World of Darkness fan project that isn't just like a modification to vampires. You play as magical girls from another world. See, the World of Darkness is a world of darkness. But the Princess the Hopeful characters came from the World of Light, where everything was great. And so even though the World of Darkness is terrible, they want to try and interject some light into it and make it a better place. And it has a giant wiki. You can look it up for free. It is a really... It is a pretty impressive project for a game about being a magical world, a girl in that one setting with the vampires.
I mean, I grew up with a couple of sisters, so I watched a lot of Barbie movies as a kid, so I might enjoy it.
I think you would.
What?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, bro. You know those straight to DVD Barbie movies? Bro, like you wouldn't believe. Like you remember Mary Posa? Just a spirit from Butterfly. Like
the Barbie TV show is low-key incredible. I think more people really, if you have daughters or little sisters, should check it out.
You got to check out The Princess and the Pauper.
Yeah. Unironically, besides just having a friend who works on Barbie stuff, I think he got fired now, but it actually is like really great because the Barbie shows are written by people like, yeah, I know you're stuck watching Barbie, so let's include some funny jokes. Like there's one of the episodes where they have like a little animal who's sick, like a bird or something, and Barbie's little sister's like, "Oh, Barbie, we need to take care of the animal sick." don't worry, I was a vet. And she goes in her closet and comes out wearing the Barbie vet outfit because Barbie was a vet for one outfit. And then Ken comes in and says, oh, Barbie, I also stubbed my knee. And she's like, don't worry, I went to human doctor school too. So she comes out as a doctor. And and then Ken's friend comes in and, like, and I got a kink in my neck. She's like, don't worry, she goes back out as a masseuse. And Barbie has another sister. She's like, wait a sec. So Barbie's 29. She was in med school for 16 years. She was in veterinary school for 8. And Barbie looks at her and says, don't think about it, or we'll go to another school. And they walk away. It's great.
I think I remember. I think I remember this series because we had like a DVD of it, fucking. And one time I remember, like, one of her friends said, "You've been to space," and her response is, "You haven't."
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Telling you, man.
I think her walk-in closet had about the area of like a fucking Costco parking lot.
It really did. There was a car. I remember one episode. She had a car in her closet just to get to her outfits faster.
Yep. I remember that.
Just I'm telling you, man, having little sisters, you get exposed to an entirely different side of like animated content, and it's great.
Yeah.
Speaking of animated content, take a look at what I posted in console text chat.
Oh, why would?
I remember that. That was back when
the audience.
Live,
let me get on screen for everybody.
There you
Oh
go.
yeah. Yep.
So
audience
Cal is the most based person in HoloLive. So she's apparently a big fan of hunters specifically.
Yeah, because this is apparently Hunter the Vigil.
Yeah, see, just according, because I remember because I watched some of that. According to her, she just really likes Hunter the Vigil. That she didn't pick vampires because vampires is popular. They didn't do D&D. She just was like, I want to run my favorite setting.
And they said yes.
And they just said, yeah. I don't think they do it anymore. I don't think it it got that many views, so I don't think they continued up.
TV trope page.
I know they did a good few episodes. Really, they got a full ending.
The Hunter the Vigil also had copy and pasted Dante from Devil May Cry series in it.
Yes, that
just copy and pasted. But submitted. You can put that on screen as well.
Sure.
Put that on screen.
And
the audience is gonna love it.
It's totally different. Look, he has a trench coat and a gun. It's a completely different character. You best not steal that. That's an OC, my guy.
You guys go.
I like
the
how
most
it's just
cluttered
like
mess that I
cover
can
of
make
the
this.
game.
Every time Astro posts something, it gets put here on the Astro page of cluttered. So
Beautiful.
There we go.
By the way, Astro, was there anything else about Changeling the Dreaming that you found, or is it literally just Buffy? Or
No, it's Sandman. I mean, it's like it's like the realm of everybody's dreams. Like insane people have their own little bits of pieces, and you can actually fight dreams.
Well, fighting dreams is kind of cool. I forgot to
Fighting
mention
dreams.
this
What
about-
is he, Republican?
But I forgot to mention this about the Changeling thing. They have their own version of integrity, but when they start to lose it, they start to have psychotic episodes. They remember the horrible torture they were in Arcadia, and it starts to like bleed into the real world. Like they basically get schizophrenic. It's very, very interesting.
Which game is this?
That was
the Survivors.
No, that was
Changeling.
And I forgot to mention that their version of integrity, when they lose it, they become schizophrenic and they like can't escape Arcadia. I don't know if like they literally go back if they lose all of their version of integrity, or if it's more like a mental thing, like they can never escape the torment they went through.
Probably a little bit of both.
Could be. Speaking of which, your favorite setting, Wraith, also technically has a spiritual successor. This time it's supposedly less cursed, and it's very different. It doesn't involve any Holocaust survivors.
Yeah, so I just want to cover Wraith real quick for those of you who weren't here last week. Go watch the last episode. It's doing rather well as a re-upload on the channel. You can find it there. We covered the insanity. Yeah. The insanity behind the whole systems and all the lore, but Wraith specifically goes insane. Because all the shenanigans that happened with it. And on the note of, since I have the mic real quick, before we fully dive into Wraith, I want to just... So Wraith is... The idea is you're dead. You have somehow had some terrible tragedy happen that has killed you. While you're dead, though, you have these artifacts in the world. They can be like a book that you liked as a kid, or they might be your ex-girlfriend or stuff like that. These objects tie you to reality, and as long as you can interact with the objects and make sure that they stay safe, you will survive. If all the objects are destroyed, you are forgotten and sent into the oblivion. So, no pressure. Now, it's all about like overcoming your own traumas, overcoming your sadness. The idea about Wraith is you're supposed to try to figure out like who killed you and you solve it. And, maybe you killed yourself and maybe you have, some issues related to that and all these different things. That's the main plot of Wraith. And you find out that there are other people who are in the setting called like Reapers who like help guide you and help you through your trauma. It's a group trauma dumping game. That's all Wraith really is. Now, there's a subsection
that's
of Wraith.
like a D&D horror story green text ready to happen.
You're not even ready for this. There's another section of Wraith, though. If you want a really good breakdown of this, go watch the channel William SRD. He recently covered the Wraith virtual reality game that came out, and he does a much better breakdown of this. But the quick version for those of you who are watching here, you're all learning about depression and sadness and stuff, and then your Wraith says, hey, why don't you come back with me to... basically this great city that all the other souls that are damned here have. And they work and they mine, and then you get these golden resources, and it turns out that Charon, the guardian of the river Styx, has enslaved all the souls who are around here. And guess what, bucko? You are enslaved to whichever Reaper or Wraith freed you. So now that you've been enslaved, you have to pay off your debt sometimes. Some of them are nice, some of them are not. And while you're there, he turns out that he realized that, hey, hell and heaven are fake, that there's no reality after this, so I should just enslave people for an upcoming war. This has caused some issues because now that there's more wars going on, there's more maelstroms that are sucking people into the oblivion. Nobody knows what happens there. Charon goes insane with this. So he then creates a shadow version of himself, which all Wraiths have, by the way. This is like your evil side, all your base desires, all the evil, wicked things you did in the world, and all your negative emotions. The guy who tells you you're not good enough before you go to bed, that's your shadow. Sharon had a shadow as well. So you have the boatman, the river Styx. He rips his own shadow out, and it turns into literally, not figuratively, literally Godzilla, and it goes into and destroys the afterlife version of Tokyo, and he gets on a boat and has a sword fight with this guy. And after he beats him, he rips a hole down to hell. We're not done yet. Down to hell, which is where the Materium is. And that's where they send all the people to mine. And while they're mining down there, it turns out there's monsters who try to capture them. So in order to stop the monsters from capturing people, you can also go over there and join some of the organizations called the Doomslayers, who go straight down in there and fight and kill these people with all these monsters. While you're fighting them, you might want to go extra deep. That's where you join the Hell Divers, who go straight into hell and mine resources. This is all canon. All these names are real, by the way.
What the fuck?
This is the sadness depression game, and on the weekends, you suit up and literally hell dive into hell and have the Doom soundtrack playing to collect iron ore for the wizards who, like,
or
own
manage
soul.
democracy, I fucking guess.
Yeah, well, you joke, but it's managed democracy, because Sharon wanted to have elections, but he realized, I can't run society if I let them elect things, they might not elect me, so he just rigged the vote to himself win every time.
What the fuck? Man.
What the hell's going on here?
What is with this overlap?
Oh.
Meanwhile, in Geist, the Sin Eaters, which is the kind of successor to Wraith, it's a little bit more sane, and it's still sad, but it's not nearly as sad. No, not really. So in Geist the Sin Eater, you play as a Geist. A Geist is someone who has previously died. Something killed you. Maybe it was a person, maybe it was yourself, maybe it was the environment, etc., etc. And when you died, basically a ghost showed up and said, hey, do you really, and these ghosts pick things, they pick people based off of different reasons, but they basically say, hey, do you really want to die? Don't you want to live forever, TM? And if you say yes, you come back to life as a Geist. As a Geist, you have the ghost that revived you living in your body with you, and you get cool ghost powers based off of how you died, just like Danny Phantom, although not nearly that, like, out of...
But just like Danny Phantom.
I did. We're all banned now. What was that, kid?
Sexy mom like Danny Phantom? How unfortunate.
No, you don't. You don't have a hot mom like Danny Phantom, and you can't phase through walls. You get different types of abilities.
Look, I don't know about you guys, but my mom is fucking hot.
God damn it! Why would you say this?
I love that pregnant silence. Let it sing for a little longer, boys.
Yes, let me marinate in it.
All right. So instead of marinating in the pregnancy
of his mother,
the interesting thing about Geists is that what you don't know ahead of time is that every single time you die at midnight, you'll come back to life and a random person will die in your place because the ghost really doesn't want to go back to being dead. And this permanently reduces your version of integrity by 1. Your integrity in this game is called harmony, which I think gets changed because that's what werewolves have too. And basically, the less harmony you have, the less in sync you are with the ghost in your body. And once you reach 0, the physical body and the ghost inside you end up in a war where you're both actively trying to get rid of the other person's soul from the body, and can never agree on anything and can never die. So, Geist has some issue. I don't know why it's called Sin Eater. I think you can eat ectoplasm or something. I don't know. We never, ever played Geist correctly. We always played Geist as we're just playing Hunter now, but we want superpowers this time.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
That's literally the only way we've ever used Geist. Speaking of other things, because I think we should just go into story time for the last 10 minutes, I'll just quickly touch. Mummy the Curse is you were an Egyptian pharaoh, you have a cult dedicated to you, you revive in your pyramid and you serve the Egyptian gods.
Yeah, somehow they found something that doesn't fit at all with everything else. Like, you look at all the other things and you're like, I don't know how all these things fit together. And then you see Mummy and it's like, okay, well, clearly all the rest of these things fit together. And then there's Mummy. Go.
The rest of them are, like, to be honest, they're Greek mythology. Everything else they've covered. Werewolves and all that identity that comes from the lineage of Greece to Rome to England to America, that cultural lineage that we all have, that follows through. You got Christianity, you got Gaia, all that follows through. Egypt is distinctly different.
Yeah, that's fair.
Speaking of being distinctly different, you don't even have to be an Egyptian mummy. Anywhere in the world where there are pyramids, you could have came from there.
Yeah, there's Aztec mummies, which is kind of neat.
Yes, it is. And if you want to learn more about Aztec mummies and fantasy, go watch my mummy video. It underperformed like crazy because people were scared of a half-hour-long mummy video. But it's got some really good content in there.
Not bitter at all.
Sorry, Mummy.
It's a great video.
Yeah,
mummies.
Mummy.
Yep, I did a whole thing about history of mummies and fantasy, and I think it's one of my better videos, and I really am, shocked at how bad it did. I theorized that the Fed got involved. It's the only answer.
I guess it's that people don't care about mummies anymore.
Well, no, the real reason is because there's no big mummy property that's coming out around the time, so nobody's looking up mummies. It'll be there. I know it. One of these days, when somebody makes a new mummy show or mummy book or something, and it gets really popular, or Brendan Fraser wins another Oscar, then that'll be my click time. Then I will succeed. It's just like the Rakshasas are doing really well because for some reason all these streamers keep mentioning Rakshasas. So like people are like, what the heck's a Rakshasa? And they just go to my video.
Nice.
I would recommend. We fought a Rakshasa in your game recently, and by fought him, I mean a goblin poisoned him in the what's a good safe for work word?
Groin.
The trout, yeah, the Gruul. There you go, not trout. Much better.
Fun fact: my Saturday game also ended up fighting a Rakshasa. My dad runs that for us, and I ended up just destroying the Rakshasas. But I also was down to 1 hit point. I used all my resources, all my abilities, because we had 3 fights that day. The first fight, I got put to sleep. The second fight, I got grappled turn 1, so I had nothing spent throughout the whole day. So this Rakshasa shows up, like, no, I'm not getting knocked out again. Turn 1, spend everything. All of it. All my spell slots, all my health, everything.
Wow.
And I
Turn 1, nuclear launch detected.
Yes. You joke, but it really was. The Rakshasa had 350 hit points. After the first turn, he had none.
Damn!
Yeah, I used everything, and I happened to crit on that roll because God just really wanted me to succeed.
All right,
Man, asleep the whole fight. Sounds like our that fight we had in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, it really was. So if we're coming to the end here, I do want to cover some of the wackier pieces of lore. I've pulled up some stuff that people have. So Samuel Hunite is a kinfolk who murdered a Garou to usurp their power. Then he murdered a mage to steal a staff to usurp their power. Then he was ghouled to get access to vampire disciples. And then he snapped to reality and turned into a good person. He just disappeared into the underworld one day. So he was a werewolf, mage, vampire.
That don't make no goddamn sense.
Someone self-insert.
That is breaking the rules.
So we didn't really get into the Camarilla and the Sabbat and all that. So basically the way that it works is the Camarilla are like the guys in charge of Vampire Society. The Sabbat are the rebels. That's all you got to know about it. Vampire Society has the idea of the masquerade, which is why it's called Vampire the Masquerade. They pretend that there are no vampires to make sure humans don't freak out. Simple as. So Sasha Viakos was so upset that the masquerade was hiding from humans that he ripped off his own member and hit one of them in the face with it before walking out. Just imagine that. Getting so angry, you just rip your own junk off and smack a dude with it.
I don't think I can imagine that level of anger, actually. That's a level of anger that is foreign to me.
Me either.
Yeah, same.
So, Vlad Dracula started trolling everybody because he went to London. He had some wild orgies with some ladies, and afterwards he gave Bram Stoker all the notes to make sure that people would think the Masquerade are goofy morons because he wanted to write like smut and stuff. So that's what Dracula in canon is for vampire, which I think is funny. Another one is there is a group of like marauders who are people who get like hallucinated. Their hallucination is that they think they're in a video game. Because of this, they are able to apply that to real life. So they're able to like double jump and punch buildings and coins fall out. It's quite goofy. It's real canon.
That is very goofy.
Oh yeah. Here's another one. The Sabbat are like the rebels. Canonically, all live in the dungeon and in like sewers and stuff. During this, they have nothing to do all day. So they found this is their canon. I'm not saying anything. This is them. They found a bunch of garbage discarded there. And after finding this garbage, inside of it was stacks and stacks of Dungeons and Dragons books. So they canonically all play Dungeons and Dragons because it's just discarded garbage. And they dominate humans to make them monsters so they can do IRL LARPing with Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow.
You know, it sounds like a very funny way to dig at your competition, honestly.
It is just so funny. Another thing is because of the Nazis in the books, which go to last week to cover that, they also accidentally canonicized the Hollow Earth, which is real, and there are steampunk wizards fighting Nazis on dinosaurs in there. There's a section of
what a phrase.
That game? Can we play that game instead?
We're not done yet. In there's a section called the High Umbra, which has languages that are represented by rivers that keep splitting into infinite rivers. On these rivers of language, there are pirates who have swords called S-words. If they hit you with them, they choose a word, and it literally cuts that word out of your vocabulary. You have to spend XP to learn the word again.
That's hilarious.
Wow.
It's so good. So, in there, the most powerful game company is called Black Dog Games. This is interesting because that's the name of the imprint that printed a lot of the 18-plus stuff for White Wolf. Instead of White Wolf, they use Black Dog. And Black Dog in setting is known as for, and I quote, the tail spinner system in the world of shadows. They make games such as Revenant the Ravishing, Lycanthrope the Rapture, Warlock the Pretension, Spectre the Annihilation, Pixie the Delusion, Human the Protagonist, and Fiend the Pacting.
That's about right.
Human the Protagonist is the best.
World of Darkness is canon inside of World of Darkness.
It's so good. Another one, O'Toole's, which is a chain owned by Pentax, who's another elite organization. The menu is literally the wildest, most heart-clogging menu item. Like, it's the most it's like succulent and powerful meats you've ever had. Everybody thinks that when you go there, you become cursed. However, that's not true. What happens is the food is so delicious that you stop paying attention to your mortal coil, then you become cursed. Because it drives you insane by not having such delicious food. And the customer service is so good, you stop caring.
I see.
It's so...
I
Oh,
wouldn't
my
have
gosh.
it any other way, honestly.
Yeah. Another one, one of the clans is Malkavian. Their leader was revived once for a source book. While he was revived, he wrote several words down and ate them, which allowed him to fully absorb the power of that word, which means that nobody can ever use that word again. And they've removed them from the language. We don't know what words he ate because he ate them.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Malkavian. Those are the guys who are crazy but prophetic.
Ooh, the fun people. I've played Vampire the Masquerade as one.
Yeah, they removed
the
them
video
in Vampire the Requiem. The Chronicles of Darkness doesn't have them. Chronicles of Darkness has like 5 canon clans.
Yeah, they removed a lot of the fun ones.
Oh, they really shorted it down.
Yeah.
Like
I said, play Chronicles for all the other system, play the original World of Darkness for vampires. You'll probably have more fun that way.
So there's a couple World War I fun ones. The
boy.
Sabbat are the guys who actually own the Black Hand, the guys who killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand. But you see, they didn't want to get drawn back to that. So they started another organization called the Blacker Hand. Then they started another organization called the Blackest Hand. They started another organization called just the Black Hand. So the Black Hand runs the Blackest Hand, which runs the Blacker Hand, which runs the Black Hand, who killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand. There's 20 people between all 4 organizations.
I could just imagine someone like looking at this from an outside perspective and being like, "These fucking idiots."
Oh, it's great. The Changeling Freehold in Boston has a riddle competition every 4th of July to determine their mayor. There's also a vampire there who's gotten brain damage and he thinks he's a fairy. I don't know how he survives, but he just hangs out because he thinks he's a fairy.
Well, good on him for never being in the sun, I guess, somehow.
Yep. And in Appalachia, there's a werewolf. Oh, no, there's a fairy who thinks she's a werewolf.
I think it's worth saying that despite that we've gone over the lore for all of this stuff for about 2 hours now, maybe an hour and 40. We've really only just scraped the surface here. We've given a kind of like base, like this is what this is what this is, and some stories within it.
Yeah, just the tip.
Yeah, there's a lot more than the tip coming right after. If you're just willing to look it up and take it.
There's 3 more I want to cover. I'm sorry. You guys got to hear this. There is a race of intelligent apes and other animals that wear lab coats in the Ether Society. And the progenitor of the Horizon constructs. Those are some of the constructs that you can play in that game that they were talking about earlier. They awaken and enlighten themselves, so that means that the monkeys are now flying around in airships as pirates. So you have pirate monkeys in airships.
Mage Ascension.
Yeah. Another one is Ciara Viago. He is a guy who lives in the future. He learned about Etherite, which allows you to time travel if you do it enough. He traveled back into World War I and had a fleet of airships over the capital of every country, declared himself ruler of the world to enforce peace. However, it's canon, and he avoided the paradox because he was brought down and erased by the technocracy. And because there's another shadow organization that killed him and destroyed him, they also removed all records of his armada, and then they went out of their way to make airships look stupid so nobody would think it's even possible.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Incredible.
Yep.
What a genius.
Yep. The last thing is the list of that Pentax company. The idea behind them is, what if the satanic panic was real? So they are a company that actually puts Satan into all their products. They sell kids' toys that make kids hate themselves and kill their family members. They have a company called Tellus Enterprises that makes violent kids, and they also turn into violent people. And the violent people who get this are called capital G gamers, which is really funny. I'm sorry. They have a network called Omni Television that specifically runs brain rotting, that encourages you to go hang out in streets by yourselves in low light positions to encourage vampires to be able to get more people. There's another company called PCP, which is Politically Corrupt Productions, and this was to make fun of CCP, which is Crowd Control Productions, who are the guys who own EVE Online, who owned White Wolf at the time. Go look into that. That's a whole other story.
Well, that's
And
a tire.
the last one is Magicians of the Bay. They are an evil corporation who owns the game Buy More Sorcery. And they also bought the Labyrinth and Lamier license, which is significant because it's only the second most popular license in the setting.
Wow.
So, yeah, it is quite funny, some of the stuff.
Would you say that these two episodes have been the surface of darkness, TM?
Yes, perfect. That's a fantastic line to end it on. So, I think we're definitely going to end it here. Anybody have any comments or concerns they want to bring up to the chat before we bounce?
No, other than you're super cute.
Oh, buy his book when it comes out soon.
Yep.
So, thank you all for joining us tonight. This video will be up on Unlisted for a few days, and then I'm going to take it down and re-upload it to the channel. It seems to have done really well last time, so I encourage you all to come check it out. Otherwise, you all have an excellent day. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye, everybody.
It was fun.
Bye.
Take care.